Most people imagine wealth like a fireworks show, loud and obvious, impossible to miss and carefully staged for social media. Shiny cars, designer logos, luxury trips with drone shots over infinity pools, all shouting, "Look how well I'm doing." But the more people I meet who are truly comfortable, the more I notice something different and counterintuitive. Real wealth is usually boring from the outside, quiet in a way that almost looks ordinary until you pay close attention. Today, I want to walk you through the subtle signs that someone is building serious wealth without making a scene. By the end of this video, you might recognize some of these behaviors in people around you, or even in yourself. Before we dive in, if you love content about building long-term wealth and financial freedom, take 2 seconds to support this channel. Hit the like button, subscribe to Dave's Dividend Lab, and tell the algorithm, yes, I want more money wisdom in my feed. Now let's start with the first sign of quiet wealth, one that shows up in conversations long before it shows up in cars or houses. Truly wealthy people are surprisingly quiet about money, not because they're ashamed, but because they've learned the cost of attention. You don't hear them constantly announcing income, bonuses, or how their portfolio did last month, and they rarely brag about purchases. If you ask directly, they'll probably shrug and say something like, "We're doing fine," then gently steer the conversation somewhere else. They know that every time you put numbers out publicly, you invite opinions, expectations, comparisons, and sometimes resentment or pressure from people watching you. When money turns into a scoreboard, people stop talking about ideas and start talking about who is winning and who is losing. Quiet wealth loves conversations about building, not flexing, so the questions change from "what do you make" to "what are you building?" They get more interested in systems, skills, and long-term plans than short-term victories. Instead of dropping prices or paychecks into casual conversation, they share habits, frameworks, and lessons they've learned the hard way over many years. Those conversations create momentum without triggering jealousy or awkwardness with friends, colleagues, or family members. On social media, they might post family moments, hobbies, or things they're learning, but rarely screenshots of account balances or expensive purchases. They want connection and expression, not a comment section full of judgment about what they did with their money. It's not secrecy for the sake of secrecy. It's boundaries for safety, taxes, sanity, and protecting relationships from weird money dynamics that ruin trust. The less other people can guess, the less pressure they feel to perform or constantly explain themselves. They also understand that the more people think you have, the more pitches, favors, and manipulative opportunities will come your direction unexpectedly. By staying vague in public, they can be precise in private with the people who really matter, like a spouse, planner, or close friend. That's the first sign. Less talking, more doing, more compounding quietly in the background, while life looks surprisingly normal on the surface. It's a kind of financial stealth mode that preserves peace while wealth grows silently month after month. The second sign of quiet wealth is what they drive and, more importantly, how they think about cars in general over a lifetime. A lot of truly wealthy people choose an older, fully paid-off car that runs well, looks decent, and doesn't scream for attention. They see cars as tools to get from A to B safely, not trophies that need to impress strangers at red lights or parking lots. They'd rather quietly own something reliable than loudly finance something impressive that quietly drains their future. They know that the first few years of a new car's life are where value falls the fastest, and they let someone else pay that bill. That decision alone can save tens of thousands of dollars over decades, money that can be invested instead. Instead of upgrading every time their income jumps, they keep the same reliable vehicle and use the extra cash to widen their financial margin. That lower monthly burn rate is one of the biggest unspoken advantages they have, because it gives them room to invest and breathe. Insurance is usually cheaper, registration simpler, and the repairs they do need are planned, budgeted, and rarely become emergencies or drama. They treat maintenance like brushing their teeth, routine and unexciting, but crucial for keeping everything running smoothly without surprises. They tend to track maintenance, keep good tires and brakes, and build relationships with honest mechanics instead of rolling emergencies into new debt every time. Over time, this habit turns what most people treat as a money pit into a controlled, predictable cost. From the sidewalk, their car might look boring or average, but on a spreadsheet, it is a compounding decision with huge ripple effects. Every month without a car payment is one more month where wealth can quietly stack instead of silently leak out of their account. Eventually, when they do need a replacement, it is usually a calm decision based on reliability and value, not a celebration of status. They buy later in the depreciation curve, negotiate hard, inspect carefully, and plan to keep the car long enough to make the numbers work clearly. If you see someone with a clean, older vehicle, obviously cared for, and no stress about payments, it might be a quiet wealth indicator. Not proof, of course, but a very strong clue that they think differently about status, debt, and long-term trade-offs. The third sign is how they treat small purchases versus big, important needs, because that contrast reveals a lot about how they think. Under a certain number, maybe $50 or $100, they are surprisingly picky and thoughtful, and they pause before clicking buy now. They compare brands, read reviews, check return policies, and sometimes wait for a sale or a better moment instead of impulse spending immediately. Many of them use lists, notes, apps, or a waiting period so wants cool down a bit, before turning into actual purchases with real dollars. A $25 item that lasts 3 years beats a cheaper one that breaks in 6 months and has to be replaced repeatedly. Over time, that mindset fills their life with fewer, better things instead of closets full of disposable junk. But when something truly important breaks, like a roof, a laptop needed for work, or a dental issue, they move fast and decisively. They get quotes, check references, make sure the solution is solid, and then pay in full if at all possible, closing the loop quickly. They separate wants from infrastructure, understanding that infrastructure protects their ability to earn, live safely, and keep everything running smoothly. Wants get filtered and delayed to protect the monthly burn rate, while infrastructure gets funded because it protects assets, health, and long-term momentum. Over time, this mindset plugs small leaks and neutralizes big risks, creating a calm financial picture with fewer panicked, last-minute decisions that wreck budgets. Cheap for the sake of cheap becomes a trap they actively avoid, and instead, they optimize for durability, usefulness, and long-term satisfaction. The fourth sign of quiet wealth is that money rarely sits around waiting for manual instructions. It moves on rails automatically. Paychecks arrive, and instead of every dollar landing in one checking account, there is already a map of where the money should go. They usually invest first, sending a fixed percentage to retirement accounts and taxable brokerage accounts through automatic contributions or recurring buy orders regularly. Then they route money into a separate bill account, where autopay covers things like housing, utilities, insurance, phone, and other recurring obligations reliably. What's left after investing and bills is where lifestyle happens, and they often put guardrails around that spending so it does not quietly explode. Some people use weekly spending allowance refills, others track categories. But the theme is the same. They design systems to make good choices easier. They check accounts on a regular schedule, maybe weekly or monthly, instead of obsessing daily and reacting emotionally to every balance or headline. Subscriptions get reviewed every few months, weird charges get noticed quickly, and late fees are rare because the system catches problems before they grow. When income drops or life changes, they adjust the system, but they rarely abandon it, because the habit of automated progress is too valuable. Think of it like writing code for your money. Set the rules once, test them, then let them run and only debug occasionally. Quiet wealth doesn't rely on constant motivation or willpower. It relies on structure, boring repetition, and smart defaults that keep compounding alive. This is one of the biggest invisible differences between people who slowly get ahead and people who constantly feel stuck. The fifth sign is how they use money to buy back time, not just stuff, and they do this more quietly than you might expect. A lot of quietly wealthy people eventually realize that their scarcest resource isn't dollars. It is energy, focus, and high-quality rested attention. So they start selectively paying to get hours back, in ways that look small from the outside, but transform their daily life from the inside. Maybe they pay for grocery delivery because the cost is lower than the value they can create in that same hour doing focused work. Maybe they hire someone to clean the house once or twice a month, so weekends can include real rest, family, learning, or creative projects. They prioritize shorter commutes over flashier cars, tools that speed up meaningful work over toys that only create more distraction, frustration, and clutter everywhere. They look at recurring tasks and ask, can I eliminate this, automate it, or delegate it to someone better suited for it? They build routines and calendar blocks for deep work, health, relationships, and actual relaxation, then protect those blocks like important appointments that cannot be missed. This isn't laziness, it's leverage, using money to create a better life, better decisions, and a less frantic nervous system overall. The payoff is not just extra free time, it is a calmer mind, better sleep, and the ability to spot opportunities instead of fires constantly. Quiet wealth often shows up as a life that runs on time, with fewer emergencies and less constant rushing from one thing to another. When time feels less chaotic, people make fewer impulsive decisions and stick to long-term plans more consistently. The sixth sign is that they think in terms of total cost, not just sticker price, and that mental shift saves them a fortune. Instead of asking, how much does this cost today? They ask, what will this really cost me over its entire life? They include money, time, maintenance, energy, attention, and even stress in their calculations. And that changes which options look attractive or smart. A cheap gadget that breaks and needs constant fiddling suddenly looks far more expensive when you add frustration and replacements to the equation. They also think about exit before entry. How long will I use this? How hard will it be to switch later? Will this decision trap me in ongoing payments, penalties, or commitments that are hard to unwind if my life or priorities change unexpectedly? They watch out for quiet recurring costs, those subscriptions, renewals, and add-ons, which feel small individually but relentless when they pile up together. Every year or quarter, they audit those recurring charges and ask, would I actively choose this again today if it were not already running? As a result, they often end up with fewer moving parts, fewer apps, fewer gadgets, and fewer complicated financial products in their life. What remains tends to be higher quality, more aligned with their goals, and much easier to maintain without constant troubleshooting and regret haunting them. The seventh sign of quiet wealth is what their calendar looks like, because time freedom often shows up long before visible luxury. Even when life is full, their schedule tends to have rhythm, repeatable blocks, and a sense that someone is choosing on purpose. They put time for health, deep work, and relationships directly on the calendar, instead of waiting for leftover time that never really appears. They are comfortable saying no or not now to opportunities, invitations, or favors that don't fit their real priorities at that moment. Urgent requests don't automatically override everything. They pause, assess, and decide whether the interruption truly deserves space or just feels loud and immediate. They build buffers instead of back-to-back chaos, leaving room around travel, big projects, or emotionally heavy events so they can recover and think clearly. From the outside, this can look like they are less busy than other people, but in reality, they're just less scattered and more deliberate. That deliberate schedule is a form of invisible wealth because it protects their energy and makes them more effective at everything that truly matters. When you stack all of these signs together, you start to see a pattern, a life that feels calm, stable, and quietly powerful. Old car, automated bills, thoughtful spending, fewer subscriptions, paid help in the right places, and a calendar that protects what really matters deeply. None of those things scream, "Look at me, I'm rich." But together they create optionality, security, and the ability to say no more often. Quiet wealth is less about performing success and more about building a life that works, even when nobody else is watching the scoreboard. If you're recognizing some of these signs in your own habits, that is a good indication you're moving in a powerful direction. You don't need a sports car or a viral vacation to be on track. You need boring, repeatable decisions that keep compounding over time patiently. And if you're not there yet, that's perfectly okay. Everyone starts somewhere, and awareness is the first step toward changing how you operate. Ask yourself which of these signs you want to grow first. Privacy, automation, total cost thinking, or the way you use time and attention daily. If this video is resonating, take a moment now to subscribe to Dave's Dividend Lab and join a community focused on sustainable wealth. Drop a comment telling me which sign surprised you the most, or which one you're already practicing without realizing it counted as wealth behavior. I read as many comments as I can, and they help shape future videos and topics we cover on this channel over time. As you refine your habits, remember that the goal is not to impress strangers. It is to buy back control over your time and options. Real wealth often looks like the ability to walk away from a bad job, a toxic client, or a stressful neighborhood entirely. It looks like having savings when the economy wobbles, flexibility when a family member needs you, and choices when an opportunity appears suddenly. Over years, quiet wealth can eventually become visible, maybe through a paid-off home, a solid investment portfolio, or the ability to retire early. But by the time you see those outcomes, the habits behind them have usually been running quietly in the background for a very long season. If you want to take the next step after this video, focus on one concrete change, maybe automating a small investment or canceling 3 useless subscriptions. Maybe it's finally fixing that thing in your life that's been draining energy, whether it's a broken system, a cluttered room, or a constant fee. As those small improvements stack up, your life will start to feel lighter, calmer, and more under your control, even before the numbers explode. That feeling is worth chasing, because it means your financial life is no longer running you. Instead, you are running it with intention. Thank you for spending your time with me today. I know you could be watching anything else, and I don't take that lightly. If this helped, hit like, make sure you're subscribed, and share this with someone who secretly cares about freedom more than flexing. And when you're ready for the next step, watch the video I've linked on screen about the milestones where wealth really starts compounding. You might realize you're closer to real financial freedom than you think, especially if your life already looks quieter than people expect.